Steelers hire Dan Quinn to match with their new general manager, Adam Peters, to lead this franchise into the future.
The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So the Washington Commanders have put out their first unofficial depth chart of the regular season heading into their Week 1 contest versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, there is one interesting caveat to this unofficial depth chart. And I love how the teams try to downplay these depth charts. They don't matter. And I think with this team in particular, I won't put too much stock into it. But generally speaking, if it's me and there's something coming out that is a reflection of the team that I'm coaching, I'm going to have input and I'm going to have say-so. So you can tell me that we didn't really have a lot to do with this list that was put out. But again, they didn't just put this thing out and have it come out of thin air. And so there is one, interesting thing that we're going to look at here in a second off this list, but I wouldn't read too much into it. I kind of go with that same mindset that defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. said, which is, look, don't ask me about who's starting, okay? We're going to roll up 17, 18 deep, and we're going to whoop people. Offensively, don't worry about who's the number 2 receiver. We know who the number 1 is. We've had a lot of discussions as to who's going to be the number 2. I don't even know if at season's end we'll look up and we'll have a definitive number 2. Maybe we will. But we might have 3 or 4 guys that collectively form to make a number 2 receiver. And for this year, for this first season of Jayden Daniels in his first year in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, with everybody else being in their first year of Cliff Kingsbury's offense, it's okay, right? Next year, we better have someone to complement Terry McLaurin, and we will. I have no doubts about that. So with that said, let's take a look at the unofficial depth chart for the regular season opener versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it looks a lot like it did when we looked at the unofficial depth chart from the preseason. Now, what you'll realize is very quickly, there are 3 starters, the air quotes here, starters on the first team offense. I don't think Luke McCaffrey is starting, but that's the name that's generating a ton of buzz and conversation. So let's go through this offensive starter list of this depth chart quickly. So you start with the quarterback, Jayden Daniels, obviously. Running back, Brian Robinson Jr. Wide receivers, they have 3 starting. Olamide Zaccheaus, Terry McLaurin, and Luke McCaffrey. Now, Luke is the one that jumps out, Diami backing him up. I'm going to be shocked if we get to Week 1 against Tampa Bay, our first offensive possession, the first snap of our offensive possession, our first offensive snap of the season. If we go 11 personnel, I will be utterly shocked if the formation reads Terry McLaurin, Olamide Zaccheaus, and Luke McCaffrey. I'm pretty sure, and this is my assessment, this is my guess, I could be wrong here, but it's going to be Terry McLaurin, Dyami Brown, and Olamide Zaccheaus. Okay, so you can make as much as you want out of this as you like, but Dyami Brown is going to be starting come Week 1 against Tampa Bay. Now, I'll say this, who knows what the snap count is going to be, what the breakdown is going to be. I just don't think I saw enough of Luke McCaffrey to think that they're that confident to roll him out there and have him playing the bulk of the snaps across from Terry McLaurin. I just don't see that being the case. And I could be wrong. But this feels like Dyami Brown. This feels like a curveball, an unnecessary curveball at that. But I'm not taking a swing at it. It's out of the strike zone. All right. I know what I saw all summer long, and I know what they've been preaching all summer long. And so I'm sticking to the script. I came into the batter's box looking for a fastball. They're throwing me a bunch of off speed out of the strike zone. I'm waiting until they throw me a pitch in my zone, and then I'm going to jump all over it. I know what this is all about. And De'Ami Brown is the starting, receiver opposite of Terry McLaurin. So I know what the list says. Then that's fine. But I know what I saw all summer, and I know what I expect come week 1. That said, your tight end is Zach Ertz. Your offensive line, no surprises here. From left to right, Brandon Coleman, another rookie starting at left tackle, which, again, not a surprise if he's healthy, which we expect him to be. He's starting week 1. I know that was a topic of conversation that we had probably, 2 weeks ago when we first heard that if he is healthy and doesn't play in the preseason, they don't care. They're going to start him. Essentially, head coach Dan Quinn said, do we want to see him in the preseason? Yeah. Do we need to? No. And that told me all I needed to know. So Coleman at left tackle, Nick Allegretti at left guard, Tyler Biadasz at center, Sam Cosmi at right guard, and Andrew Wiley at right tackle. This is a revamped offensive line. 3/5 of this offensive line is brand spanking new. Let's see how they perform in week 1 versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Backing them up, you've got Austin Eckler backing up Brian Robinson Jr., Marcus Mariota, obviously backing up Jaden Daniels. As we talked about already, De'Ami Brown backing up Luke McCaffrey. I think that is going to be switched when it's all said and done. Jamison Crowder backing up Olamide Zaccheaus, John Bates and Ben Sinnott backing up Zach Ertz. Along the offensive line, and to get to the other receiver position, Noah Brown is backing up Terry McLaurin. On the offensive line, no surprises there in terms of the backups. Cornelius Lucas is your backup left tackle. Chris Paul is both your backup at left and right guard. Michael Dieter is your backup center. Trent Scott is your backup right tackle. So that essentially is your offensive depth chart. You got Byron Pringle as your third receiver behind Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown at the X, and Colson Yankoff, the surprise undrafted rookie out of UCLA, is your fourth tight end. Jeremy McNichols, your third running back, and Jeff Driscoll, your third quarterback. So now we switch to the defensive side of the football. And again, no surprises here. Everything is pretty much status quo. So on the defensive line, you've got Cleveland Farrell, Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Dorrance Armstrong as your 4 defensive linemen. The linebackers are going to be Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. They've got Dante Fowler Jr. here as a starter, but again, he's not going to be on the field as a linebacker. Okay. Now they will come out in some different sets and they'll have some different looks, and he may be standing up because Dante Fowler Jr. has always been comfortable in a 2-point stance. So don't be surprised if you see him in the game and he's standing up, walking around, or rushing off the edge out of a 2-point stance, but he is really a defensive end when it's all said and done. Your 2 backers are going to be Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. Mike Sainristil as your nickel, Benjamin St. Juste, Emmanuel Forbes on the outside. Remember when the first unofficial Deppy was released, Forbes was backing up Michael Davis and was on the bench. Never thought that was going to be the case. But remember, Michael Davis is going to play significant snaps for this team this season. These 3 corners are going to be almost interchangeable. We hope that Benjamin St. Juste and Emmanuel Forbes step up and we don't see a bunch of Michael Davis. But my intuition tells me that eventually we're going to see a ton of Michael Davis, and he's going to be better than the guy that he comes in for. That's what I've been on this entire time. I hope we don't see Michael Davis because Benjamin St. Juste and Emmanuel Forbes are playing so well. That's the hope. I don't think that's going to happen, though, but we'll see. Jeremy Chin and Quan Martin round out the starting defensive side of the football. Backing those guys up, Jamin Davis is backing up Cleveland Farrell. Fedarian Mathis is backing up Daron Payne. Johnny Newton is backing up Jonathan Allen. And Javonte John Baptiste is backing up Dorrance Armstrong. Dominique Hampton, outside linebacker behind Dante Fowler Jr. So again, Dominique Hampton is listed as a linebacker, and I think that's where they're going to work him for the time being. I don't know if he stays there, but Dan Quinn loves the undersized linebacker, hybrid safety, which is what Jeremy Chin essentially is going to be in this defense. And I told you Dominic Hampton is a similar type of athlete. He's not quite the same athlete as Jeremy Chin, but he's a very similar type of athlete. And so we saw it in Dallas. He had a safety down there, but wasn't nearly as big as Dominique Hampton, so a little bit different. Michael Walker backing up Bobby Wagner. Feel good about that. They got Dominique Hampton as the backup to Frankie Louvu as well. I think you're going to see Jamin Davis get some of those reps too. I wouldn't be shocked there. But, they're working Dominique Hampton a ton at linebacker to get him prepared in case he has to enter the football game. So keep that in mind. No Igbenogany, I told you guys he was the insurance policy behind Mike Sainristil. I told you he's not State Farm. He's not Allstate. He's not Geico or Progressive, but he's the general. He gets the job done. It's still insurance, right? Talked about Michael Davis backing up both of these boundary corners. And then Derek Forrest and Jeremy Reeves are your backups at the safety position with Tyler Owens and Percy Butler on the third line. Again, I don't know if I need to read too much into this because I don't think that there's any instance where Jeremy Reeves is in the game before Percy Butler, right? I don't even know if there's an instance where Derek Forrest is in the game before Percy Butler. The way they use Percy this summer, they like him a lot. So, again, don't read too much into this. But, again, our defensive coordinator already told us, don't worry about who's starting where and who's doing what. We rolling up 17, 18 deep, and we looking to whoop people. So I take him at face value. And then we round this thing up with the special teams. Tress Way, punter, place kicker, Cade York. Holder, obviously Tress Way. Long snapper, Tyler Ott. And we finally got clarity at what they're going to do on special teams. So on kickoffs, you're going to have Byron Pringle and Olamide Zaccheaus more likely than not back there returning. And then on punts, they're going to have Jamison Crowder back there. And I told you, Crowder wasn't making his team unless he was the primary punt returner. He's going to be the primary punt returner. Okay. And they got someone to fall back. So I feel really good about punt returner all of a sudden. Like, I don't expect Jamison Crowder to break anything, but I'm comfortable with him being back there. And if he can't do it or if something goes awry with him, I feel good about Olamide Zaccheaus going back there. So that is your depth chart, your first unofficial depth chart of the regular season. We'll see how close that is to being accurate. I'll bet any amount of money that Luke McCaffrey's not out there on the first offensive snap when they go 3 wide. Okay. So we'll see if that shakes true or rings true. And I'll also go a step further and say that I can't see an instance where we get to the safety position and Percy Butler's not on the field before Derek Forrest. But we'll see. I'm a Derek Forrest guy over Percy Butler. But, they like Percy Butler because of his speed, athleticism, and, his versatility and all the things he brings to the table. So let's see if they can get the most out of Percy Butler. So with that said, let's go ahead and go to in other news. And I just want to mention this before I forget. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen that Brandon McManus has had his charges dropped initially. Now, if you read the story, I read the story. What it appears is that in Florida, in certain courts around the country, they allow you to be anonymous when you're filing sexual assault claims against a defendant. In this particular case, if there's enough proof, you can remain anonymous. If they don't think it's enough proof, then you need to put your name on it, essentially, right? We're not going to allow you to be Jane Doe and, this, that, and the third. We need you to put your name on it. And so because they didn't put their name on it, the judge said this is insufficient evidence. We don't even know who's making these claims. We're throwing this out. So you have 10 days to essentially file a motion to have the charges reinstated if you insert your name on the documents, so that they can now go and have proof, right? Once your name is now here, we can now question you. We can now get to the finer granular details of what transpired, this, that, and the third. So the lawyer of the two women, the two plaintiffs in this case, said, and it's Tony Busby, the same guy that defended all those women with the Deshaun Watson case. He's an ambulance chaser. So I have no doubt that these women are going to ultimately win this case, in my mind's eye, at least. Like, when I say win, I'm talking more of a civil suit type of thing. I don't know if they'll have enough proof to get him in a criminal court, but they'll get him in a civil court for sure. They're going to get some money. That's the only reason Tony Busby took the case. But I just brought it up because there's going to be some fans out there, and if you're not following it close enough, there are going to be some fans out there telling you, see, we should have held on to Brandon McManus. Don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. He is not out of the woods yet, and he more likely than not has not seen the last of this case, and there will be more to that story. And ultimately, the Commanders did the right thing. We were not in a position to hold on to a place kicker who was dealing with sexual assault claims. We just came from that world. We lived in that world for over 2 decades. We want no parts of anything even remotely close, even insinuating that someone has something to do with sexual assault or any sexual misconduct. You can't be here. You cannot be here. So they did the right thing. They absolutely did the right thing when it comes to Brandon McManus. And I just felt like I needed to bring that up. With that said, the Washington Commanders are taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But according to Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are taking on the Washington Redskins. Now, keep in mind, Todd Bowles is a former Washington Redskins defensive back. He was a safety on that 1987 Super Bowl team that defeated the Denver Broncos. His Redskins bloodlines run deep. And there are a lot of alumni that can't stand Commanders, refuses to call the team the Commanders. There are a lot of fans that refuse to call the team the Commanders, which is just fine by me. I don't care, right? And so I know a lot of fans were excited to hear Todd Bowles say what he said. In case you didn't hear Todd Bowles during his press conference, calling Washington the Redskins not once, but twice, which shows that this was done intentionally. Take a listen.
I think if you find yourself just facing a rookie quarterback, the other 10 guys going to kill you. So we're facing the Redskins. We're not facing Jaden Daniels. They got 10 other guys that we got to worry about as well. So we don't look at it as facing a rookie quarterback. We're trying to beat the Redskins.
So Todd Bowles, without a doubt, was making a statement there. Now, I've read a couple of articles that, it's so funny because, the whole cancel culture thing is just, it's mind-boggling sometimes. And again, I don't like to get on my high horse when I talk about the name change and, us being stripped of our identity. It is what it is at this point. It sucks. And it's amazing that the same people who chastise you, point your finger, and wag it at you for using what they term to be a derogatory name and term to refer to Native Americans are the same ones closed-minded and not willing to listen to the other side of the argument, which is that's not just a derogatory name, and nobody even uses it in that context anymore. In addition to that, we know what Redskins means. Nobody goes into a bar, and this is the analogy that we always use. Nobody goes into a bar and says, hey, you see those 2 Redskins over there, and they're talking about 2 Indians. They're talking about 2 Washington football players. Everybody knows that. So it's all about context and connotation and whatever the case may be. I said all that to say this. Todd Bowles doesn't give a shit, clearly, all right? He was a Redskin. He won a Super Bowl as a Redskin. That's what he feels like this organization should still be called. I know a lot of players that still feel that way. I know a lot of fans that still feel that way. Todd Bowles probably made a lot of friends um, from our side of things with that statement. And I've always said this to you guys: once family, always family. As long as you don't do anything to discredit, defame, or disgrace the family, when you leave here, you're still family. Like Albert Hainsworth is not family. You know, when he left here, we tried to distance ourselves as far as we could from Albert Hainsworth. Daniel Snyder is not family, okay? We never want to see that man again, and we never want him to be associated with this team ever again, right? But for the most part, most guys that leave here, they remain family, especially if you help us win a Super Bowl. Todd Bowles is family. Love Todd Bowles to death. I want to do nothing more than bash him and the rest of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers brains in on Sunday afternoon. And then when we're done, we go back to being family. Anyway, in other news, Washington signed their final player to the practice squad. So remember, I had told you guys, I think this was like 4 days or 5 days ago, that the Commanders had used up 16 of their practice squad spots. But they had one remaining because the Commanders get a 17th spot that they are able to use on a IPP, an International Pathway Program player. And they use that on the defensive lineman, Haji Mbusi. So I figured at some point they're going to add another player to their practice squad. Took them a little while, but they finally did it in Nick Bellore, a guy that has an extensive career as a special team standout. He's actually a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife of sorts. Has been around the league, Jets, 49ers, Seahawks most recently. Actually signed a 1-year deal to come back to Seattle because he made the Pro Bowl last year as a special teams player, but ended up getting cut because remember, that was with the last regime, right? There's no more Pete Carroll, so new staff comes in. They don't have the same affinity for a Nick Bellore. Obviously, the special teams coordinator that was there with Pete Carroll is no longer there. He's here, which explains why Nick Bellore is now here. This is a guy that's 35 years old, but still one of the better special teams players in the league. There's always a place in the league for a guy that can play top-notch special teams, and Nick Bellore can do that. So, obviously, Izzo knows him very well, our special teams coordinator, and he is on the practice squad. And if they feel the need to pull him up on a game day, he will be, accessible. So now the practice squad is completely set. So is the 53-man roster. I don't see many alterations being made to either one until things have to be done, because of injury or because of a guy like F.A. Obata being brought up off, or same thing could be said for Jordan McGee. Then you'll start to see some shuffling of the deck, right? Because in order to make space on the active roster for F.A. Obata or Jordan McGee, somebody has to be released. If they really like that player, they're going to want him back on the practice squad. If he clears waivers, if he's a guy still on a rookie contract, if he's a veteran and he wants to come back onto the practice squad and he doesn't have opportunities elsewhere, then you have to remove someone from the practice squad to make space. So you see where that could end up going, but you don't have to cross that bridge now. I think both of those guys are starting the season off on the PUP list, or in the case of McGee, I think he's on the short-term IR. So either way, you're talking 4 games for McGee before you have to have that discussion. And I think with F.A. Obata, you're probably talking 6 for him. So whatever the case may be, that's all done, dust settle, smoke clear. That's all taken care of now. And so now it's on to Tampa Bay in week number 1. I'm very excited about that upcoming contest. We're going to talk more about it on the live show on Wednesday night as we go Commanders Nightly News live Wednesday night. Remember, Commanders Nightly News will take place on Wednesdays every single week. Wednesday nights will be live, and we'll be talking about everything Commanders. First day of the work week for the team. They'll get out on the practice field. We'll probably hear from Jaden Daniels, head coach Dan Quinn, among others. We may hear from one or two players in addition to the quarterback and the head coach. But Wednesdays usually is quarterback and head coach. So we'll hear from them. We'll break those two press conferences down and then start to turn our attention to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and what will need to be done in order to get the victory. Start to look at the line that's been set, the over-under in terms of points being scored in the game. And Vegas will kind of tell us how they feel about the game as we start to get more comfortable with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Something I didn't know, and I talked about this on my podcast the other day. Did everybody realize that this was a 425 kick on Sunday afternoon? Did you guys know that? I was oblivious to this. I didn't realize that it was a 425 kick until I literally was putting together my LouieTeeNetwork exclusives, and I was putting the picks, the games into the sheet. And I'm like, why is this game so far down the sheet, right? It should be higher up on the sheet. If it's a 1 o'clock game, why is it down here with the 4 o'clock games? And then I looked and I was like, oh my God, we're playing at 425. I did not know that. So that was news to me. I don't know if that's news to you guys, but it's news to me. So Bleacher Report had sent me a request to do the post-game show right after the game, and it was set for like 7:45. And I was like, why is it set for so late? I was like, it doesn't matter. I'll be done with my post-game stream by then, so I don't care. And then now it dawned on me, and now it makes perfectly good sense why they sent me a request for that late. That's when the game's going to be over. So, wow. I don't know how that was an oversight on my part, but it was a major oversight. So it's actually better because now we get to watch all of the games at 1 o'clock, and then we play at 4:25. There's so much excitement in week one. You're ready to see everybody play. It's cool to kind of let that excitement kind of wear off a bit as you watch all these games, kind of let that anticipation build. As long as you're playing on Sunday and not Monday, we've done that. We've been down that road before. We've been good enough to where they wanted us in week one to play on Monday. It has been a while. It was 2016 the last time they asked us to play on an alternate day other than Sunday, but it sucked. Boy, we waited all the way to Monday to get our brains bashed in. That sucks. We don't have to wait. We'll play on Sunday afternoon, and we get to watch all the 1 o'clock games. We'll be playing simultaneously with Dallas, but we'll get a chance to watch the Giants earlier in the day. The Eagles play on Friday, so we'll get to see the entire division, and hopefully we take care of business, but we'll talk more about that on tomorrow's show. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. See you next time. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, and to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's got